I want to tell you a story of where we are, where I think we can go, and what might be required to help us get there. To do that, I got to run it back to the beginning. And first of all, what's going to happen for the next 20-ish or so minutes? I'm just going to talk. It's like a one-sided conversation, right? There you go. But you probably smiled right then. I know you did. I hope you did. About 12 months ago, I knew things were going to be weird because it was a Friday the 13th, and I went to the Whole Foods in Burbank, California, and they ran out of kale. Whole Foods ran out of kale. There's a lot that I didn't see coming in 2020. That's top of the list because Whole Foods has two jobs. Job one, stock kale. Job two, overcharge for said kale. It's like that's the Whole Foods brand. So how do you not deliver on that brand promise? You know what I'm saying? Like overpriced kale is your thing. And it was rough. I had a rough go of that visit. Not only because they had run out of kale and ginger, but because this lady just like stole the last banana. I was clearly reaching for it. She looked me dead in the eye and she was like, my banana. And I got punked and I had to come home in shame. I'm glad I survived with my life, not so much my dignity. It's been a wild ride. We've been using Zoom. I want to update that language a bit. Zoom usage has grown. I don't think that's the right language. I think we've been hostage to Zoom, held captive by a once in a century phenomenon. Time will tell if we really want to be doing this Zoom life thing. Back when COVID hit the United States, we all got told a story. We were somewhat made a promise. They told us that COVID was equal opportunity. It would come for us all. It doesn't discriminate. It was like the post-racial America of novel coronaviruses, a Barack Obama virus, if you will. And I wouldn't, because that's not how it turned out. That was a lie. COVID didn't itself discriminate. It does not take on human weakness in that way. But the systems we designed to protect us from it, well, they do. They were designed to, over many hundreds, maybe even thousands of years, such that only certain people were overexposed to this virus. Certain people live too far from a quality hospital because we privatize public health. Certain people are deemed essential workers, and yet we throw them by the wayside. Certain people don't have the economic wherewithal to withstand stay-at-home orders, work-from-home orders. Who can even exercise the choice of working from home? All that skews with the hue of your skin color. By design. But we were told this was a shared sacrifice. And I remember seeing early news reports of police being called on Black people for wearing masks. Remember when they figured out we should wear masks after all the Asian countries like, you should be wearing masks. America's got to move at its own pace. Folks calling the cops on Black people for wearing masks because they look suspicious. But then also seeing video footage of cops violently assaulting Black people for not wearing masks. So which is it? To mask or not to mask? That is the question. Oh, there is no right answer because there's no right way to be Black in a pandemic because there's no right way to be Black in the United States of America by design. We are stressed at this point in the story. We are trapped at home. We are bereft of all kinds of distraction and entertainment. And at peak memory moment, Memorial Day, Amy Cooper Day, we get this powerful scene. It's almost like the game masters of America huddled in the room and decided we cannot let the country fall to a foreign virus. We need to fall, if at all, due to good old-fashioned homegrown white supremacy and systemic racism. Get me a white woman in yoga pants with a dog and a strong sense of entitlement, put her in Central Park. Now give me a comically non-threatening black man. I mean literally into comics. Can you make him like Ivy League educated, into tiny animals, New York Audubon Society board member, and homosexual? Christian Cooper, no relation, enters the scene. And we saw Amy Cooper do what history enabled her to. Weaponize access to state power. An attempt to rain down hell on a fellow American. I'm going to call the police on you and tell them an African-American man is threatening me and the life of my dog. And that's where the Oscar win, not just nomination, comes in, because she dragged the dog into the scene. And that dog was like, I am not a racist, leave me alone. But she didn't. And on that same day, about 1,000 miles away, a different 911 call got placed, this one ending in a much more deadly fashion. And we all saw Derek Chauvin slowly murder George Floyd in broad daylight in front of the public, on camera, in full view, with permission and silent consent of his co-workers for over 8 minutes. And something in us broke. Something in me broke. Something in you, I am sure, broke too, because it was irrefutable. The inhumanity was undeniable. And people took to the streets for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But to understand that moment, to understand this journey we've been on, we've got to rewind back into that journey. About 3 weeks, there was a different set of protests on these streets for life, liberty, and the pursuit of haircuts. Let us not forget the perm riots of the summer of 2020. People in their Don't Tread on Me and their AR-15 storming the state houses, spitting COVID-19 into the faces of the blue lives who allegedly matter. Such a ruckus did they make for access to supercuts, which I can somewhat understand. I'm overdue for a cut myself, but it never occurred to me to strap up and shut down the Michigan legislature. To be fair, the men with guns didn't demand the government shut down. The government just shut down to let the men with guns decide what it is they did want. Maybe it was actually access to 24-hour fitness and not merely supercuts. And that was a dry run. That was a dress rehearsal. That was a practice round for what we would see in the attack on the Capitol on Jan 6, 2021. But back in our summer of discontent, after Derek Chauvin slowly murders George Floyd, and we have no distraction, no brunch, no basketball, everything's canceled, all we can look at is the truth of what happened, of what has been happening in this country and to a large extent in this world. And so people took to the streets for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And funny enough, the same government that couldn't find N95 masks for frontline healthcare workers, couldn't find face shields for essential grocery store workers, found plenty of gas masks and plenty of riot shields and plenty of tear gas to be used against members of the public, but not even against our enemies in the field of war, for simply begging for mercy. Please just don't kill us so openly out in the streets, though. Maybe we should ask for haircuts with guns. But we know how that would have ended, in a lot more bloodshed and a lot more death. So at this point in the story, I am bereft of any kind of feeling or energy. I am remembering the exhaustion, the anger, the pain, the spentness of it all. And I'm also remembering my phone blowing up. White people alert. I was getting calls and texts from white people. I had forgotten I knew. It was truly something remarkable. Baratunde, I'm so sorry for what's happening. Baratunde, this must be so terrible for you. Baratunde, I can only imagine how tough this is for you, but let me tell you how tough it is for me. Also, could you send me like a 10-point plan for how to become an anti-racist in the next few days? Because I'm trying to make it to Coachella next year. We should wrap this up real quick. Whew. It was a lot. And the people who took to the streets didn't always look like the people I'm used to seeing. People who look like me, like this sort of human being with the brown skin and the kinky hair and the broad nose. No, there were so many others there. And that lifted my heart a bit, even as it remained broken. I remember seeing these moments of a white person stepping in between the police and a crowd of black people and just weeping. I remember walking around my neighborhood and figuring out that it was the white neighbors who put the Black Lives Matter signs in their yards. I never would have seen Black Lives Matter signs as leading indicator of gentrification until 2020. I remember seeing Mitt Romney out in the streets saying Black Lives Matter on Black Lives Matter Boulevard. Mitt Romney's to me, he'll always go down as the man who tried to take the black president away from me. That's Mitt Romney to me. It's not fair. He's a family man. He's a decent person. He's a competent senator who has often put the rule of law above his party. But mostly he's the dude that tried to take the black president away from me before it was his time, halfway through the journey. No. But Mitt Romney felt brave or safe or both enough to go out into the streets and say Black Lives Matter. And the thing that really got to me in this wave of conscientiousness, it wasn't when companies turned their Instagrams all black. I know you're thinking that was the most meaningful contribution, right, Baratunde? Wrong. What got to me is that I'm from Washington, D.C. I grew up there. I haven't lived there in a long time, but it's always a part of me. And I can remember being in high school and recognizing the heinous ugliness of the name of the Washington football team and learning what it meant and learning how indigenous people felt about it and deciding right then and there, okay, we have to change this. This is wrong. I'm a black person. I can't be wanting the Washington N-words. So it was the easiest decision in my young mind and heart. And yet the name persisted. Majority black DC was good with it for a long time. The team owner had a segregationist moment about it. We're never changing this name. Not now, not ever. Okay, that's the racist hill you want to die on? And in the summer of 2020, the team dropped the name. Not because it suddenly decided to respect the wishes and interpretation of indigenous nations. No, it's because a multinational billion-dollar shipping company decided not in our name. And I was like, yo, FedEx, I think you earned some business. And also, why did it come down to you? We've created this world where we need companies to be our heroes. When elected leaders aren't doing what we send them to do, we hope some influencer will do it instead. We hope a brand will issue the right press release or signal the right set of virtues. And there's power in it, and there's a form of leadership there, but it also annoys me to no end because we shouldn't be relying solely on that. It puts us in a weird space. I've been called in to talk to a lot of companies in the past 6-8 months about race and racism and corporate stuff and the internet and digital and messaging and how do we not get in trouble on Twitter, I think is like a big subtext to the contract. And there are things that I've learned from these forays, this handling of hazardous material, that I think bear on this conference, on you, on advertising and the brand experience. COVID-19 removed the veil of America's brand experience. We have told ourselves a story for so long we actually believed it, and COVID didn't care. And so everything we papered over, the divestment from communities, the slashing of the social safety net as we leapt out the window, COVID reveals all that. And it doesn't care about your brand story. It only knows the truth. And the truth is, we've been living in a false story. And as we try to come out of it, we've been expecting so much to happen so fast. I want us to create that place that we can all be proud of, where liberty and justice really is for all. And I know we can do it. But there's some tips to get there that I must communicate to you right now. The first being that getting there, arriving, doesn't happen just like that. In fact, it might never happen. That is not a reason to not go on the journey. It's a reason to enjoy the pursuit, to feel good about the quest. Justice isn't a destination, just like love isn't. It's the journey. That's the thing, the shared commitment, the learning about each other in that process and growing closer together because there's a process. We have to adjust our expectations and be in it for the journey. We have to be willing to look back at what we've been through, look back at what we've benefited from that had nothing to do with anything we did do. I have to do that as a man and continue to work on that. You may have to do it for some power you've inherited without labor of your own. But we are in a society that is systematically taken from so many and given to so few. And being afraid to acknowledge that means we'll repeat it again and again and again. We've got to get to a place where showing up for racial justice and equality and liberty and freedom and all these things is not a charitable opportunity. It's not some corporate give back. It is what it means to participate in society. What it means to, in the title of the podcast that I do, to citizen as a verb. If you're in this to liberate me, you're not really in this. I need you to be in it to liberate yourself as well. And I'll tell you why you're captive too. If you take the story of almost any Western nation in this world, it's got a deficit in its history, but especially the USA. Because we started on the wrong foot with the displacement of multiple indigenous nations, then the forced labor over many generations of people from the continent of Africa. That's quite a boost to the bottom line, the whole free labor and access to capital like that. And we kept digging the hole through Jim Crow. We dug the hole through the lynching period that scared 6 million people out of the South into the North in the largest human migration this continent's ever seen. We kept digging the hole in World War I and World War II when people went over there to fight for freedom for you and then couldn't come back and buy a home for their own families. We kept digging the hole with mass incarceration. We kept digging the hole with policing, with disparate outcomes in health, with lack of access to funding, to money, to capital, to investment. And then we say, how come Black people don't have wealth? Well, maybe because we were systematically denied access to the mathematical phenomenon of compound interest. Maybe the best way for Black people to build wealth is to create a time machine, go back and just buy the house they were terrorized out of in South Carolina. or Brooklyn. This hole that we've been digging, I'm not the only one in it. We're all in it. And no one gets out of a hole by just stopping the digging. We've got to climb, affirmatively climb out of the hole. So what I want to see is a mindset shift. It's great to read my book and hire me. It's good to read in general. But I need us all to recognize the size of the challenge and the size of the opportunity to get out of that hole, to ask with every decision we make, with every flex of power we take, which is what decisions are. That's us flexing our power. Are we using that decision to get us all out of the hole? The good news for the digitally inclined among us, this whole thing we're living in isn't really real. Is he about to do simulation theory? Kinda, sorta. We live in a story. We believe things because someone told us. Most of our understanding of reality is not through tangible, direct access. It's mediated. It's media that informs us about the world and tells us what's real or not. South by Southwest isn't real. It's a collective delusion. We all believe in it so strongly, we're willing to commit to contribute funds and time to it, and creativity and tacos. Apple Inc., that's not real. We just believe it. The US dollar, also not real. Not even Bitcoin. Sorry, crypto bros. Reality is a bit of a faith-based institution. That's unstable, right? That's a lot. But there's power in that because we can shape it. We live in a world already shaped by this story. We've inherited a story of a very small thing, that a small group of people should dominate the many. That's a weak story. That's held us back from our own greatness. Imagine if we unlocked everybody's potential, how much greater, doper, wealthier, more whole we could be if we didn't fear our history, but integrated it into a greater we. But to do that, we have to write a new story. And in this digital space that we're living in, a digital story written world, we have more power than most to generate realities. And with that power comes great responsibility. So as you're thinking about what you and your brand can do, social media statements are good, hiring is great, retention is better. Investing in the places that have been divested from, that's the best. Using your power to bring into the system those who've been excluded, that's real good. And walking with integrity in this journey, trying to exhibit these values in everything we do. What does that mean for advertising and the brand experience? This field is some of the greatest story manipulators the world has ever known. We conjure up realities. We tell people what they want, who they are. And with the powers of machinery, it's unparalleled power to shape reality. So I contend, if you're against human trafficking, you can't be for data trafficking in humans. If you want to walk with integrity around social justice and racial equity and anti-racism, that's real good. But we can't deny people their digital freedom at the same time. We're in a moment of choosing. Will we be able to determine ourselves, or will we be beholden to a black box algorithmic representation thereof, designed to extract value from us, to serve a lesser few, not the many? I want this community to keep busting the bounds, the small thinking we have established about what it means to be online, to innovate, to interact, to tell a digital brand story. It should not require us to digitally own people. We're fighting for freedom. So let's be free. Free of the old story, write something new, free of the old techniques that say we have to hoard humanity. My servers, my data. No, it's part of me. So if you think Black lives matter, Black people's data matters. Everybody's does. It is an extension of us. Try living in that world. Try making that world. It's an issue of trust, I think. The folks who helped establish the current status quo, they didn't trust the people. Even as we set up a democracy in the United States, the world's longest running, allegedly, we didn't trust most of the people to participate in it. We didn't trust women to exercise their voting franchise. We didn't trust Black people to participate at multiple levels. We didn't trust immigrants from various lands at various times. We had an authoritarian view of people power. That's not how this works. That's not how our system of self-government works, not how it should. It's not how our increasingly digital system of reality should work. We have to trust people and set up systems that allow for that trust to be exercised and tested and grown. We did not create the internet for a handful of companies to control the whole thing, doling out meager bits of freedom. No, the whole platform is supposed to be an opportunity to exercise freedom in so many different ways. I want us to aim higher, think bigger, write more broadly. Trust us. You can't do this without us. Without our data, it's nothing. Without our spending, you're nothing. Without our hopes and dreams, your story doesn't land anywhere. Trust us to tell it too. That's what you can do to help us all be free. Not just me, but you too. Thank you very much. That's my time. I've blown through my own timer, but I wanted to get through it. And this is normally the time where I would hang out with you after, or we'd go to Stubbs and get some overpriced meat product or whiskey. And at the time I'm recording this, it's too early for whiskey. So I thank you sincerely for giving me something that's so valuable of yours. Your attention. I hope I have treated it with respect. I hope you do the same with the attention you're trying to gain. Peace.